2 million pilgrims visit her every year. She has been dead since 1879. She is lying in a crystal case in Nevers, France, and her face looks like she fell asleep this morning. Her skin is smooth. Her hands are folded. The church calls her incorruptible, a body so holy that God refused to let it decay. The face is wax. It was sculpted by a Parisian mannequin maker in 1925. Beneath it, 3 doctors' reports describe a blackened, mildewed, salt-encrusted corpse. The real face of Saint Bernadette has not been seen in 100 years. There is no such thing as an incorruptible body. But there is such a thing as a corpse that resists decay longer than it should. Forensic science knows exactly why. The explanation is not divine, it is chemical. And the church's own investigator eventually said it out loud. Incorruptibility is a belief held by the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches that divine intervention allows certain bodies, specifically saints, to resist decomposition after death. The body remains soft, flexible, lifelike, sometimes for centuries. In the most celebrated accounts, the flesh gives off a sweet fragrance, the odor of sanctity, as if holiness itself had a smell. The tradition reached its peak between the 16th and 20th centuries, when canon law required exhumation as part of the investigation into a candidate's sainthood. The body was opened. Doctors examined it. Reports were filed. And if the body was found to be unusually well preserved, this was treated as evidence of sanctity, a sign that God had marked this person as holy by exempting their flesh from the universal law of decay. Over 100 saints have been declared incorruptible. Their bodies are displayed in churches across Europe, in glass cases, crystal reliquaries, beneath altars. In Bologna, St. Catherine sits upright in her habit, blackened but intact, 500 years after her death. In Paris, St. Catherine Labouré lies behind glass, with a face that appears freshly composed. In Padua, the tongue of St. Anthony, just the tongue, separated from the body, is displayed in a gold reliquary, reportedly still soft and pink after 8 centuries. Pilgrims visit by the millions. They see faces that appear to be sleeping. What they do not see is what the doctors wrote. Bernadette Soubirous died on April 16, 1879 at 35. Frail her entire life. Cholera as a child, chronic asthma, tuberculosis of the bone that ultimately killed her. She was buried without embalming. Her first exhumation took place on September 22, 1909, 30 years after burial. 2 doctors and a church tribunal were present. The body was remarkably intact. The face was dull white. The hands were perfectly preserved, but the nose was already dilated and shrunken. The lower parts had darkened. The body was rigid. It sounded, one witness wrote, like cardboard when struck. The second exhumation occurred on April 3, 1919. Dr. Comte and Dr. Talon examined the body independently, writing their reports in separate rooms to prevent influence. Comte's report was clinical. The body was practically mummified, covered with patches of mildew and a notable layer of calcium salts. The skin had disappeared in some places. He removed sections of the 5th and 6th ribs as relics and noted the liver, hardened, resistant, still identifiable beneath the diaphragm. He later wrote that he had wanted to open the thorax and remove the heart, which he was certain would be intact. But the body's rigidity made further dissection impractical. The third exhumation came on June 12, 1925, and a decision was made that would define how the world encountered Bernadette for the next century. The face had darkened, the nose had flattened, the eyes had sunken. Church officials determined the appearance might distress pilgrims, so they commissioned Pierre E. Mans, not a doctor, not a scientist, a maker of department store mannequins, to create wax masks for the face and hands. The masks were applied. Bernadette was placed in the reliquary, and the reliquary was sealed. What the public has seen since 1925 is not Bernadette. It is a wax impression laid over a mummified corpse that 3 medical reports described in progressively grimmer terms across 16 years. The miracle that 2 million people visit each year is a cosmetic intervention, performed not by God but by a mannequin maker. To understand why Bernadette's body lasted 30 years without embalming, you do not need theology, you need chemistry. When a body is buried in a sealed coffin in stable, cool, dry conditions, several processes can slow decomposition dramatically. The most significant is adipocere formation, also known as saponification. In the absence of oxygen, bacterial enzymes hydrolyze the body's fat. The triglycerides break down into free fatty acids, which undergo a chemical reaction functionally identical to soap making. The result is a waxy, grayish-white substance called adipocere, from the Latin adeps, fat, and cera, wax, corpse wax. Adipocere encases the body. It seals surfaces. It inhibits further bacterial colonization by creating a chemically hostile environment for the microorganisms that drive putrefaction. A body that has undergone extensive saponification can retain its shape, its features, even the fine detail of its skin for decades or centuries. Adipocere is more commonly found in women, infants, and individuals with higher body fat. The elevated subcutaneous fat provides more raw material for the chemical conversion. The process begins within weeks of burial and can stabilize within months, locking the body in a state that mimics preservation, but is, in fact, a specific and well-documented stage of decomposition. The soap lady, exhumed in Philadelphia in 1875, was entirely encased in adipocere. She is still on display at the Mutter Museum. She has been dead for over 200 years. She is not a saint. She is chemistry. The second mechanism is natural mummification. In environments with low humidity and stable temperature, stone crypts, sealed tombs, dry church cellars, the body desiccates before bacterial decomposition gains a foothold. The skin tightens, the features shrink, but retain their shape. The body appears preserved not because something supernatural has occurred, but because the environment denied bacteria the moisture they needed. The third mechanism is the most uncomfortable. Some bodies were treated, embalmed, coated with resins, injected with preservatives, and then presented as untreated. As miraculously incorrupt. When Pope John XXIII was exhumed in 2001 and found remarkably intact, church officials acknowledged the body had been embalmed. They also noted that his sealed triple coffin had created an oxygen-depleted environment, the exact condition that promotes adipocere formation. The miracle had 2 explanations, both chemical. In Lucca, Italy, in the Basilica of San Frediano, the body of Saint Zita has been on display since 1580. She died in 1272, 700 years in a glass case. The church declared her incorruptible. In 1988, Gino Fornaciari, professor of paleopathology at the University of Pisa, examined the body. His findings were unambiguous. The body was naturally mummified. The skin was browned, wizened, dried. The preservation was consistent with desiccation in a low-humidity stone crypt. Fornaciari concluded she had died of chronic lung disease, likely from years of inhaling coal dust and smoke. She was not incorrupt. She was mummified. The distinction matters. Mummification is a natural process that requires only the right environment and enough time for moisture to evaporate before bacteria can destroy the tissue. But Zita is still displayed, still called incorruptible. Every April 27th, citizens of Lucca bring bread and daffodils to San Frediano in celebration of her feast day, and the body is brought out from behind its glass to be touched by the faithful. Only her hands and face are uncovered for viewing. The rest is draped in vestments that have been replaced many times over 7 centuries. The label, incorruptible, holds more power than the forensic finding. The word on the placard overrules the word in the pathology report. In 2025, Monsignor Robert Sarno, retired Vatican investigator, nearly 4 decades at the Dicastery for the Causes of Saints, said publicly what forensic science had been demonstrating for decades. There is no such thing as incorruptible. Bodies mummify, he said. They are preserved by environmental conditions, by embalming, by chemical processes that science understands perfectly well. To speak of them as incorruptible is absurd. What the faithful see is, in many cases, magnificent cosmetology. Wax masks, silicone restorations, climate-controlled cases. The infrastructure of the miracle is maintenance, not mystery. The Church had already acknowledged this quietly. The 1983 revision of canon law removed incorruptibility as a factor in canonization. It is no longer treated as evidence of sanctity. The institution that built the tradition dismantled its theological significance, without dismantling its public display. The bodies are still in the cases. The pilgrims still come. The wax is still in place. The odor of sanctity, the sweet fragrance said to emanate from holy bodies, has a biochemistry as well. Diabetic ketoacidosis produces acetone, which smells fruity and sweet. Certain liver conditions produce floral organic compounds. A body-forming adipocere releases esters and fatty acid derivatives with odors that a faithful observer might describe as unearthly. The smell was real. The interpretation was not. This is the pattern across every case of claimed incorruptibility. The observation is accurate. A body that resists decay, a face that retains its features, a fragrance that defies expectation. The evidence is genuine. The conclusion that God has intervened is drawn not from what is observed, but from what is believed before the observation begins. A body that does not decay is unsettling. It violates the contract we believe we have with death, that the flesh will go, that the person will become dust. When that contract is broken, the living need an explanation, and the explanation they reach depends entirely on who they are and what they already believe. The same body, in the same condition, can be read as damnation or as grace, as horror or as holiness. The chemistry does not change. The culture does. Forensic science does not take sides. It says only what preserved the body, the pH of the soil, the moisture in the air, the fat content of the tissue, the temperature of the crypt. It reads the wax and identifies the manufacturer. It reads the skin and identifies the saponification. There are visitors who stand before the reliquary at Nevers and weep. There are visitors who stand before Saint Zita in Lucca and cross themselves. There are visitors who touch the glass and believe they are in the presence of something that has defeated death itself. They are not fools. They are people doing what people have always done when confronted with a body that defies expectation, reaching for the explanation that their world provides. The saints are not sleeping. They are dead. They have been dead for decades, for centuries, and they are being kept by chemistry, by environment, by wax, by the same physical laws that govern every body ever buried. Decay is not a punishment. It is not a moral verdict. It is chemistry. And chemistry does not make exceptions, not for saints, not for sinners, not for anyone. But the pilgrims will keep coming. They always do. Because the need to believe that something in us survives the body is older than any science, stronger than any report, and more durable than any wax. The mask will crack eventually. The body beneath will continue its slow, indifferent work. And the glass case will go on showing the world exactly what it wants to see, not what is there, but what must be there for the story to hold. That is not a failure of science. It is a quality of faith. And forensic pathology has no instrument that measures it.